Wow, this transcript from the Inner Circle Trader is amazing. He gets so real about trader psychology, especially for Forex. Like, we're really getting inside the mind of a seasoned trader here.
Yeah, and it's cool how he focuses on turning insights into action. He doesn't just tell you about the mental hurdles that every trader faces. He gives you actual solutions based on his experiences.
Okay, so he starts by talking about these common psychological barriers like fear of missing out, fear of losing, impatience. Any of this sound familiar to you?
Oh, absolutely. Those are things that every trader struggles with. What I find interesting is how he connects them directly to solutions. Like he says that FOMO, that fear of missing out, often comes from not having a clear trading setup.
So you mean like not just jumping into trades, but having a solid plan?
Exactly. He's all about having a detailed trading plan. And I mean detailed, not just some vague idea. It has to be written down, back-tested, and then you have to actually follow it consistently. And this is key to managing your emotions and not just making impulsive decisions based on fear.
And he even says that high accuracy isn't everything, right? It's more about managing risk and having the, what did he call it, the mental fortitude to stick to your plan, even when you're on a losing streak, which honestly is easier said than done when you're in the moment watching your money disappear. Especially for new traders, he talks about how easy it is to chase that high of a winning trade, and that can lead to some really bad decisions.
Yeah, like that saying, plan the trade and trade the plan. This guy really stresses the planning part, both in terms of your strategy and managing your emotions. He even compares that feeling that a lot of traders get, that impatience, to water torture, that agonizing wait for the perfect setup to finally come along.
Oh, tell me about it. I've been there. Sometimes you're just watching the charts, waiting and waiting. It's excruciating.
Especially if you don't fully grasp that trading is about probabilities, not certainties. This source really, and I mean really, emphasizes patience and discipline above all else.
And that's where he brings in journaling, right? This part is so interesting to me. He is such a big advocate for journaling.
He is. And he's really open about how much it's helped him. He uses it to debrief and process his emotions after a trade so they don't carry over into his next one. He even suggests writing down how you cope with stress during a trade, which is fascinating.
It's like therapy and trading advice all in one. And he talks about using your journal to look for patterns, like your strengths and weaknesses as a trader.
Totally. Like really getting in there and not just tracking what happened with the trade, but what you were thinking and feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
This kind of self-awareness is so important if you actually want to get better.
And he's also real about how our personal lives can affect our trading. He says that outside stress can really creep in and mess with your decisions if you're not careful.
It's all connected. Remember that example he gives about his son's surgery? He was saying that he really wishes he had just stepped away from trading completely during that time because he was so anxious already. It just highlights how important it is to be aware of your emotional state before you even open up your trading platform.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about having a trading plan, but also a plan for managing your mental state, which I never really thought about before. He also talks about the importance of having hobbies and interests outside of trading to help maintain some perspective.
That really resonated with me. It's about balance. Trading can take over your whole life, so you have to make time for other things to stay grounded.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. He breaks down the trader's mindset into three distinct personas: the analyst, the trader, and get this, the gambler.
It's such a good visual, right? Like, you can really picture that internal struggle that so many traders go through. He argues that the analyst, who's focused on logic and data, should really be the one in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
But of course, the gambler is always lurking in the background, that part of us that's impulsive and just looking for an adrenaline rush.
And it's when things get really stressful that the gambler tries to take over, right?
Exactly. He actually gives some really interesting examples of what he does to cope in those moments, like little rituals. He talks about how he fidgets with coins or a deck of cards to get that nervous energy out and just be more present.
That's so smart. It's like having these little things you do to keep yourself grounded.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you. And he even talks about how those little coping skills that he developed for trading, they've actually helped him deal with stress outside of trading too.
Like it's training your brain to handle anything. Okay, I have to tell you, the part about the language we use in our journals, that really blew my mind.
Oh yeah, me too. He's really big on positive reinforcement. Like actually using words like happy or proud or pleased in your journal entries, especially when you followed your plan and had a successful trade,
Instead of beating yourself up over the losses, you should be celebrating those wins.
right? And reinforcing the good behaviors that got you there.
Yes. It's all about that positive self-talk, which, let's be honest, a lot of us, myself included, forget to do, especially after a setback. And on the other side of that, he talks about how damaging negative self-talk can be after a losing trade. Right, like no calling yourself names, even if it feels kind of deserved in the moment.
Yeah, he says your subconscious mind hears those negative words, and it can really mess you up in the long run.
It's like you're programming yourself for failure or success just by the words you use.
Exactly. You're trying to cultivate this mindset of growth, of learning from your mistakes. So even when you do mess up, it's about figuring out what you can learn from it, not just dwelling on how much you messed up. He even compares reviewing your trades to reviewing like a workout.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Like you're acknowledging the areas where you could improve, but you're also looking at the overall progress you're making. It's just a healthier way to look at it.
And that's where those super detailed chart annotations that he does in his journal come in, right? He's not just like quickly writing down the trades. He's really capturing his whole thought process.
Oh, absolutely. It's like he's creating this roadmap of his trading journey. He's actually taking screen captures of the setups as they're forming, writing down what he expects to happen and why. So later, he can go back and not just see what happened, but why he made those decisions in the first place.
It's like those before and after photos in those home renovation shows. You get to see the whole transformation unfold. He even mentions that he uses his annotated charts to like validate his approach over time.
Oh, yeah. He'll actually go back through his journal, not to obsess over past losses, but to see where his analysis was spot on. It's about building that confidence and seeing proof that his strategy actually works.
It's like having a trading mentor right there with you. But in this case, it's your past self guiding your future self.
I love that. So true. And, speaking of having a focused approach, he also talks about how he really only focuses on a couple of currency pairs, mainly the Euro USD and the British Pound USD.
To avoid spreading himself too thin.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that we don't have to be experts in everything. It's better to find your niche, the thing you're really good at, and master that. And by focusing on just those two pairs, he's able to really get into the weeds and understand them on a deeper level.
And he's big into technical analysis, right? Like he talks about using Fibonacci retracements and extensions. I have to admit, that stuff always seemed a little intimidating to me.
He does use those tools, but he emphasizes that they're not magic. He even has this whole thing called the power of three.
The power of three. Okay, now you have to tell me more.
So basically, he identifies three possible price targets, and he uses things like Fibonacci levels to help him with that. But, and this is key, he's not using them as predictions. He's using them as a way to define his risk and reward for each trade before he even enters it.
So it's all about calculated risks, not just jumping in blindly hoping for the best.
Exactly. There's a method to his madness. He even talks about how he looks for those technical signals across multiple time frames, like starting with the daily charts and then zooming all the way down to the 30-minute charts.
He's looking for those patterns that repeat across different time frames to increase his chances of success.
Exactly. It's so much more than just chasing every little setup that pops up. And really, it all comes back to having a plan, a well-defined plan, and having the discipline to stick to it no matter what.
Even, or maybe especially when you're feeling emotional.
Especially then. He's really honest about the fact that trading is hard. It takes real dedication, self-awareness, and a commitment to constantly learning and growing.
It's not about some get-rich-quick scheme. You have to be willing to put in the work, especially the mental work.
Yeah, like he said, the best trading book you'll ever read is the one you write yourself, your trading journal.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot. What does this all mean for someone who's listening? What's the big takeaway here?
This deep dive, it really makes you think about your own trading. How well-defined is your trading approach? Are you relying on a solid process, or are you letting your emotions call the shots too often?
Or are we guilty of letting that gambler persona take the wheel sometimes? I know I am.
It happens to the best of us. But that's the point, right? To be aware of it. And to ask yourself, could something like a structured journaling practice, the way he describes it, could that be the thing that actually helps you improve? And remember, even this guy, who's clearly a pro, he still deals with fear and uncertainty and that temptation to gamble.
It was actually kind of reassuring to hear him be so open about his own struggles, Makes you feel less alone.
Exactly. And the more self-aware you become, the more you understand your own psychology, the better trader you're going to be in the long run.
One line that really stuck with me was, we can't control the market, but we can control our reactions to it.
So true. And ultimately, that's where the real power lies.
This has been such a good reminder that all the technical analysis in the world won't help you if you haven't mastered your own mind first.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, happy trading, everyone.